It's been a while since I've roasted it in the bag, and I didn't want one of you softies to cry in the comments, so I decided to go back in the vault to one of the classics, my 2020 in the bag. So without further ado, put a mask on and let's see the garbage during the pandemic. I'm talking about the dude bros and groups of nines taking up the courses, not my discs. I would never be that mean to my babies. I hate to start this way, but I really was putting with fireflies. I received my first pair for super cheap, and when I was sponsored by Innova, it felt better to put with those over Discmania P2s. Even though I, along with the rest of the world, knew the Innova made P2s were possibly the greatest putter of all time. But my young mind felt like it was a flex using something that was expensive to putt with. In hindsight, I realized people probably just looked at me goofy. But like I said, I only had two of them. The rest of my practice putters were in fact those P2s. I guess I've always been this stubborn. Or I was just an idiot, which is the only way I could describe bagging a Sonic. It really was the first edition of the glitch, except this one was straight up a dog frisbee. I will never accept anyone bagging something that could be thrown on the beach. Feels weird unless you're balling out throwing a normal putter. That in fact is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. One time I was on the beach of St. John and found myself in a game of catch with a disc golfer with his beat up AVR. One of the most random moments of my life, but you bet I was diving around people making catches while flicking this thing on gnarly hyzer flip lines, hoping it doesn't fade into the ocean. Because this guy was crazy enough to be throwing his main putter. I don't condone that type of behavior, but I can't hate too much because I totally had a normal lid to play with, but I didn't want to miss out on this opportunity. Now I'm glad I finally have a place to share that story. Back in the day when I was buying every new disc that would hit the market, Discmania released a mystery box in which you could get an unreleased prototype. At first, the concept was genius. You could get a bunch of discs for a deal, plus a sick new frisbee that only a couple hundred people would have. Before everyone and their grandma can get the disc, that is. I will say it was cool at first when you could get gems like the Cloudbreaker, but quickly you realized every other disc you get in the box is one that they couldn't sell. In other words, you better like P2s, mid-ranges, and who am I kidding? Unless you were a Discmania freak, you were upset. But the special disc usually could save the massive amount of rage you were having. I ended up getting the Cloudbreaker box, but had enough P1s in my closet to risk the next year. Of course, it would have something I needed too, a low-profile, overstable approach disc. The exact frisbee I'd been looking for. It would be months before the release of the Tactic to the public, and I wasn't going to spend the insane eBay markup prices. So I was left with no other choice than Facebook raffles. Never had I tried before, just been in groups and questioned. But now I had no other choice but to try. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, there are Facebook groups dedicated to disc raffles, or waffles depending on where you are. In the simplest explanation, someone puts up whatever they are raffling, most commonly be discs. They set the standards from amount of spots available, the price of tickets, and all that other nonsense. Once all the spots are filled, someone does a random generator and whoever's name is pulled wins the prize. I'm sure you guys know what a raffle is, but it honestly feels more like disc golf gambling, which is sick. And on my first try, I ended up winning the Razor Claw, which was a blessing and a curse. I won the disc, which was cool, but now I had a crippling addiction to disc golf raffles. And as a 17-year-old whose only hobby was disc golf, I had nothing else to spend my money on. So for about a month, I went all in. It was bad to say the least, but guess how much cool shit I won? Nothing. Literally, I won the first time, and that was it. The disc was pretty dope though, because the first run had a crack in the claw, which was an Easter egg since it would be Eagle McMahon's signature series, and it was released right after he broke his hand at USDGC. Only for me to forget it on the course 5 years later. Oh well, I grew up and learned the yarn was better anyway. I wish I had a fun fact about the bullfrog, but I got nothing. Well, besides this is a new one from the last time I did it in the bag, which meant it was time for the next. If you're looking for a low-profile putter that can handle some power and stay straight, even possibly some fade, don't get the bullfrog. Get the Invader in premium plastic instead. I love the bullfrog, but you hit one tree and it's a different disc. XT Plastic has that Gorilla Grip stronger than Riley Reid, but you don't want to buy a new throwing putter every round in the woods. I hope you haven't gotten used to seeing this Mako 3 in my bag, because it's going to keep popping up. Although, I can't remember using it during this stage of playing because I didn't believe in turnovers. Seriously, I had a forehand, so if I needed a disc to go to the right, then I was covered. You guys probably could have guessed I was stubborn based on my other videos. I should mention that I have outgrown that phase of my life. Cut me some slack. I was 17 and the only people I played disc golf with was Swiss Cheese, and you know all the holes in his game, and the forehand flex king disc golf Jesus. So when I mention mistakes like, I don't know, bagging a lion, you guys should excuse me because of my hard upbringing. Nah, I'm just kidding. Innova sent me this, and I hate their mid-range selection, so when you're sponsored by them, I was forced to make a choice. Because the only thing worse than throwing a shitty Innova mid would be to bag a boring name Discmania disc. Instead, like every 60-year-old, I chose a DX Rock, and all I can say is, meh. Just like the Cayman. It's an overstable mid-range, and as long as it fades, it does its job. To be fair, I wouldn't really know, because it never left my bag unless there was an ace run that I was throwing every disc on. Sort of like the Mako 3, you're probably used to this FD by now. That's not going to stop me from mentioning that Simon Lizotte signed it, but also members of my collegiate team because I aced it my freshman year on the team. Let me know how you feel about signing ace discs because I'm anti-writing my name and number on my Frisbees, so I'm torn on how I feel about when I ace. But now this disc has some new signatures on it, since there was a memory I want to continue to live on. Swiss signed it, but also the other person, the Gem of Waco, for when I hit an ace at Brazos Beast down in Waco, Texas. A story that I'll be telling soon on the next road trip video. Make sure to subscribe to not miss out on that episode. The Instinct is a great disc for someone looking to push out 350 feet with some flip up, relying on the disc to glide straight with some fade at the end. Or if you power up, the disc can work its way to the right. This disc can be utilized for both slower and faster arms for the perfect fairway slot. The Instinct can handle power without it rolling over, and even if it doesn't get pulled that hard, it's not going to dump out to the left, allowing an ideal flight for most disc golfers, and even when I start thinking of it, I want to bag one again. So someone out there should go do it for me. I get called out for quote-unquote hating on this disc, but I don't know if you've heard me shit on a disc, but I promise I don't hate the Thunderbird. It just bores me. Sure, some people think it's dope for it to hold whatever angle you put it on, but that's so one-dimensional for me, I'll pass. But by no means is the Thunderbird bad. Honestly, I think it fits into one of the slots of untouchable, because of it being a classic in many people's eyes. It seems most do or have at one point bagged one, so I'll leave it alone for now. Speaking of classics, the Firebird might fit that role the best. At least it should. Everyone can find a reason to throw a Firebird because it has one job, to fade and fade hard. If you consider yourself a forehand dominant player, I don't see how there is a world you don't have this in the bag, unless you're sponsored by someone not Innova. And if that's the case, I already know you wish you could have it in the bag. The Firebird really is one of those discs that can't do wrong, which is why I have 3 of them in my bag right now. Feels good for both backhand and forehand, and when the only thing a disc has to do is dump, it's hard not to like. In my opinion, the best forehand disc for 250 to 300 feet, of all kinds of shots too. There's nothing better than having a beat-in Firebird that you can manipulate in all sorts of lines. It can really become a magical disc if you know what you're doing. And lastly, I must not have gotten out of my red-pilled alpha male mentality because I still had 8 destroyers in my bag for whatever reason. They all had different wear and tear, plus each had a backup, so essentially I was only bagging 4. But that's a bigger compensation than every lifted truck I've seen in Texas. If I had a smaller bag, these would be the first to go. Who am I kidding? At this time, if I could bag all destroyers, I probably would. I was not smart, because if you notice from the last time I roasted my in the bag, all the improvements I made on the driver selections are gone. No more Wraiths, DDXs, or anything that would actually get some turn on my drives. I must have watched too many Steven Crowder videos telling me understable discs were making me a soy boy. If you need a sign to branch out and try new discs, here's the wake-up call you've needed. Even though those 200-foot nosedives you call a drive should have been that sign a long time ago. Your boy is currently in Houston, Texas, spending my last week before heading off to, well, not too sure yet where. We have a week break before we need to go to Arkansas, so if there are any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. I like playing anything unique, or really anything that will look cool on camera, so at least if you mute the video, you can see me playing something picturesque. Also, I need some more bags to roast, so I'll pick 2 people that go follow my Instagram at JKDiscGolf and DM me your bag. I want to give a quick shout out to my boy Tim for the awesome Birdogi logo right here. He absolutely killed it with this one. Shout out to him again. That should be everything. Wait, here's your daily reminder to not putt with a judge. Okay, now I can do the outro. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. It's the easiest way to help me one day not live in a minivan. Oh, and if you want to know what type of disc golfer you are, check out the video right here.